Step into a world where history, culture, and identity converge. Welcome to our YouTube channel where we uncover the untold stories and narratives that have shaped the Middle East. In this captivating journey, we're delving deep into the annals of time to explore a topic that has often remained in the shadows: the history of homosexuality in the Middle East. Subscribe now and embark on this enlightening journey with us. The official fiction is that gay people don't exist in the Middle East. However, they did and do. Before the modern era, the concept of sexual identity as we understand it today did not exist. People could engage in homosexual acts without these acts contributing to their overall identity. This was particularly evident in the Islamic world, where homosexuality was recognized but not the concept of a distinct homosexual identity. There were other aspects of identity that sometimes intersected with sexuality. For instance, there were women who dressed in a manner associated with men, but their attire did not determine the gender of their sexual partners. Interestingly, Ibn Sina, also known as Avicenna in the West, discussed homosexuality not just as an act but as a state of being. He considered it an incurable condition. However, even if individuals were engaged in homosexual relationships, they were still expected to fulfill familial roles and have children. As long as these obligations were met, there was no dishonor or stigma associated with having same-gender sexual encounters. In fact, such relationships were not scandalous. While male homosexuality appears to have been quite common, references to female homosexuality are scarce. European visitors to the Islamic world during the late medieval and early modern periods often imagined lesbian relationships within harems, but these are rarely mentioned in Islamic sources. One amusing example comes from a Venetian envoy at the Ottoman court of Suleiman the Magnificent, who wrote that if harem women requested cucumbers, the cucumbers were sent sliced to prevent their use for pleasure-related purposes. However, much of this may be fantasy, as it's unlikely the envoy had true insight into harem affairs. There is one documented example from the Abbasid Caliph al-Hadi's era. He was the brother and predecessor of Harun al-Rashid. Al-Hadi reportedly executed 2 women in his harem for engaging in a lesbian affair. While mentions of female homosexuality are rare outside the harem, there were female poets who wrote about female lovers in a manner similar to how male poets wrote about male lovers. Unfortunately, only passing mentions of these poetesses survive, and their poetry has not been preserved. Interestingly, Muhammad al-Idrisi noted that intelligent women often formed relationships with female lovers as a way to avoid submitting to the wishes of men. At the height of the Islamic Golden Age, a period from the mid-8th century to the mid-13th century when Islamic civilization is believed to have reached its intellectual and cultural zenith, homosexuality was openly spoken and written about. During the Islamic Golden Age, the Abbasid dynasty is known for being relatively liberal regarding homosexuality. This is due to a variety of factors, notably the move towards a more bureaucratic Islamic rule and away from literalist adherence to the scripture. Many Islamic rulers were known to engage in, or at least tolerate, homosexual activities. For instance, Umayyad Caliph al-Walid II was said to enjoy al-talawat, an Arabic word for sex with other men. Abu Nuwas, one of the most prominent Arab poets to extensively produce homoerotic works, did so under the tutelage and protection of Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid's successor, al-Amin, rejected women and concubines, preferring eunuchs instead. Abu Nuwas, 756 to 814, one of the great Arab classical poets during the time of the Abbasid Caliphate, wrote publicly about his homosexual desires and relations. His homoerotic poetry was openly circulated right up until the 20th century. Nuwas was an important historical figure. He even made a couple of appearances in the Book of 1001 Nights, known in Urdu as Alif Layla. It was only as late as 2001 that Arabs started to blush at Nuwas' homoeroticism. In 2001, the Egyptian Ministry of Culture, under pressure from Islamic fundamentalists, burned 6,000 volumes of his poetry. Most modern Muslims, therefore, have little knowledge of what the Islamic Golden Age was really about, even though they keep wanting to go back to it. ISIS has no idea what restoring the caliphate actually means, a tweet by Belgian-Egyptian journalist Khaled Diab said. In Baghdad, it would involve booze, odes to wine, science, and a gay court poet. Baghdad was, until the time the Mongols invaded and destroyed it, the cultural capital of much of the world, the New York City of its time. If Nuwas and his homoerotic poetry could represent the height of Baghdadi culture, it is natural that other Muslim societies would also be quite open to homosexuality. As historian Salim Kidwai puts it in the fabulous book, Same-Sex Love in India, homoerotically inclined men are continuously visible in Muslim medieval histories and are generally described without pejorative comment. In fact, far from being pejorative, Muslim societies once openly spoke of same-sex love, even celebrating it at times. Mahmud of Ghazni, a towering sultan of his time, 971-1030, was actually held up as an ideal for, among other things, deeply loving another man, Malik Ayaz. Mughal Emperor Babur wrote of his attraction to a boy in the Camp Bazaar in his 16th century autobiography, a celebrated work of literature in the medieval Muslim world. In the 18th century, Dargah Quli Khan, a nobleman from the Deccan traveling to Delhi, wrote a fascinating account of the city called the Muraka-e-Delhi, the Delhi Album, which described just how mundane homosexuality was in Indo-Islamic society. At the public bazaars, male prostitutes solicited openly, and Khan spoke admiringly of how young good-looking men danced everywhere and created great excitement. Until the 19th century, Muslims treated homosexuality as a part and parcel of life, so much so that students were exposed to romantic stories of homosexual love, a position untenable even today across parts of the Western world. Kidwai writes, Said's classic Gulistan, containing stories of attraction between men, was considered essential reading for Persian students. Ganamit's Now Rang-i-Ishq, a 17th-century Masnavi describing the love affair between the poet's patron's son and his beloved Shahid, was a prescribed text in schools. Of course, theologically, Islam did consider homosexuality to be sinful, based on the Quranic story of the people of Lot in the Bible. Interestingly, though, the Shariat, the umbrella term for the various legal codes and schools governing Muslim societies, has no punishment for homosexuality per se. Sexual relations between men are outlawed under the larger rubric of adultery. Even then, convictions for homosexuality could only be carried out if the sexual act was testified to by 4 eyewitnesses. This was such a high bar that commentators on Islam have characterized the outlawing of homosexuality in the Shariat as a sort of legal fiction. Indeed, unlike medieval Europe, instances of homosexuals being punished are rare in medieval Muslim societies. So what caused Muslim societies to go from coolly reading homoerotic poetry to outlawing and stigmatizing same-sex love? It's tough to nail down an exact reason, but here's an interesting coincidence. There are 5 Muslim countries where being gay isn't a crime. All that the 5, Mali, Jordan, Indonesia, Turkey, and Albania, share in common is that they were never colonized by the British. In 1858, in fact, the Ottoman Empire decriminalized homosexuality, a status inherited by Turkey. This was 2 years before the British Raj created the Indian Penal Code, Section 377 of which proceeded to outlaw homosexuality in modern-day India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. So deep was the influence of the 1860 Penal Code in India that conservative Hindus continue to hold homosexuality to be immoral. In the nearly 70 years since independence, Parliament has not been able to overturn the law. This is near bizarre given that Hinduism, unlike Islam or Christianity, does not even have any textual condemnation of same-sex love. It appears as though Muslim and Hindu conservatives, without knowing it, are actually copying the Victorian mores of 19th-century colonialism while ignoring their own history. This is happening at a time when even Western European cultures have pulled up their socks and gone on to ensure that human rights are available to their people irrespective of random externalities, such as the gender they happen to be attracted to. The question remains as to how and why attitudes towards homosexuality changed so dramatically. While the obvious beginning of such an investigation would lie with the Quran and Islamic views on homosexual activity, this approach has already proved inadequate. It is clear that these de jure views were not the de facto reality. Instead, it is the influence of Western ideas of modernity that offers the most plausible explanation for this reversal of attitudes.